Peanut butter milk stats.
Okay, this is perfect.
You bought these.
I did. It's karma. I bought beer for you, and now it's coming back to me.
It's the circle of life.
It is. Circle of beer. Hello!
Hi.
Welcome to the stream. This is Awesome Hardware, episode 196. You're watching Side B on the Bitwit YouTube channel. That's mine. And if you missed Side A, go ahead and check it out in the link in the description, just below the YouTube player, or you can just continue watching on twitch.tv/awesomehardware, where we stream every single Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. It's a great show.
Sometimes a few minutes after that.
Yeah, anywhere between 5:30 and 8 p.m.
Yeah.
We start the show. We keep a tight ship running. So thank you for being here. This is just following the weekend of LTX 2019. This was both of our first times.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. Thank you to the LMG crew for inviting us out.
Great.
And it was awesome to see some of you guys there. Hope you guys, those of you who went, had a great time too. Additionally, I forgot to make a quick little announcement on your half, but my LTX 2019 vlog is now on FLOATPLANE.
Oh.
So all you FLOATPLANers can go watch it. And I believe, represent, Paul's representing, which definitely means he's joining the platform soon, I'm sure.
Can't wear the pin unless you have vague plans to join the platform at some point in the future.
That's right. It's very telling. And also,
they're slightly less vague now, though.
Slightly less, yeah, that's true. And also, there happens to be a new bonus video that just surfaced on FLOATPLANE.
What?
That was shot by not me, but a certain special someone. Documenting his time during the event, or rather what he was doing outside of the event while I was inside. So if you guys are on the platform, you can go check that video out now. It will probably surface on YouTube at some point, I'm sure. Anyway, could I be any more cryptic? Let's move on to our first news article from TechSpot.com. Oh wait, I totally forgot to plug our merch.
Oh yeah, merch.
We sell things. So my store is really quick. Bitwit.tech, shirts, pint glasses, hoodies. I'm currently working with a designer on a new logo, so don't buy anything with the Bitwit logo on it.
Ooh. Or buy it up now while supplies last.
Yeah, it's vintage, could be worth a lot someday, especially if I sign it. Maybe I'll spit on it for you, sell you some bath water. And then Paul's store is paulshardware.net. He also has the same super high quality merchandise with his own flair and logos and other cool designs. We will shout shouts at you at the end of the show if you happen to buy anything from either of our stores.
Indeed.
And if you buy any of the awesome hardware branded merch, we will be able to, Paul and I can split the profits from that. So we won't make you choose. Let's move on to user benchmark controversy. User benchmark. They recently had some sort of controversy here where, well, first, if you don't know who they are, it's a company, it's a website that has like thousands of CPU and GPU scores. It's kind of like an aggregate website, and they just tell you exactly.
Benchmark comparison website.
Yeah, it's a benchmark. Thank you, Paul. I was looking for the right phrase.
Described by our friend Steve from Gamers Nexus as SEO trap garbage or something.
Yes.
Something to that effect.
More or less. There aren't a whole lot of people who, I shouldn't say, it's kind of weird because I feel like a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of people who kind of just know a bit about tech don't really use this as a source, use this site as a source. But apparently there's like 10 million unique users a month.
Because lots of people who are considering
just have no idea.
X product or Y product.
Right.
Or this processor or that processor.
Yeah.
Especially if they have no idea building a computer, or if they're buying a pre-built, or if they're buying a laptop or something like that, and they're just like, oh, something like this.
Yeah.
9350KF versus 9980XE. So they punch that into Google.
Right.
And then sites like these that have aggregate benchmarks.
It's a very accurate
can rank
score,
very
by the
high
way.
in the Google search results by having basically pages for every single possible comparison of different GPUs against each other.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they put the SEO stuff at the top in order to try to get as many of those clicks as they can.
Yes, exactly.
So what egregious thing has this website done?
So basically, they've decided to change how they actually weigh their CPU scores. They actually started favoring single-threaded performance. So they adjusted their scoring algorithm to favor single-threaded gains. So like, this basically inflates the CPU scores, and it doesn't make them very representative of real world performance. They used to average the score as 30% of the single-threaded performance, 60% of the quad-core performance, and 10% of the multi-core performance. Now, the weighted average is 40% single.
That seems like a reasonable balance to me, I will say. And that may be getting slightly outdated because of the emphasis on quad-core.
Right.
But
it's still pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
And then now the weighted score is, for single-core, it went from 60% to 40%. Quad-core is now 58%. That's down from 60, so not a huge change there. But the multi-core weighting is now 2%. That's down from 10%. So they reduced it by 5 times the amount, which, needless to say, has lowered the Ryzen 3000 scores by quite a lot. And a lot of fans, a lot of AMD fans, and people in general, enthusiasts in general, AMD and Intel fans alike, are outraged. They took to Twitter and they took to other social media, Reddit and stuff, and just were very irate about this change that Userbenchmark just kind of up and threw down right after the Ryzen 3000 launch. So Userbenchmark updated its FAQ saying that after Ryzen 3000, our CPU scores were unrealistically overestimating all CPUs with core counts beyond 8. So we corrected our estimates. At present, we estimate that our CPU gaming index is accurate to around 8%. By rebalancing the weights in favor of more cores, we could probably reduce the error to around 5%. Even after a rebalance, the 4-core i3-9350KF would still, on average, offer a similar gaming experience to the 18-core i9-9980XE, a fact which many of our most vocal critics seem to find hilarious. So basically, they're heavily weighing their scores in favor of single-threaded performance, and it's very controversial because this happens to be right after AMD Ryzen's Ryzen 3000 launch that is heavily focused on multi-core, high core thread count CPUs. So it almost seems like Intel is in this website's pocket, or if they're not, they clearly have something to gain from it, or
Allegedly.
at least that's what it seems like.
Allegedly.
That's what it seems like. So I can see why it's definitely raising some eyebrows and why some people are upset about it, or at the very least, suspicious as to why this large change is coming about. So even though Userbenchmark sort of addressed it, I don't think it hasn't really been met with a whole lot of support. People aren't like, oh, okay, I get it now, and they're like, oh, it's fine. Some people are still pretty salty about the whole thing. And I think what you were saying, Paul, is that this is one of those websites that, because it has such high SEO and it's a high traffic site, for a lot of people who don't really know much about tech, I think it's even more important that a website like this be honest and fair and representative of real world hardware performance, because these people won't know any better. You know, these people will literally think that this is the end-all answer. Like, you go on this, you type in your 2 CPUs, oh, this one has a slightly higher score, it must be the better buy, when that clearly could not be, that clearly wasn't the case 100% of the time before, and now it certainly seems like it could even be more skewed than it was.
Which continues Awesome Hardware episode 196's theme of the difference between viewing things as a binary choice or a zero sum versus recognizing that there is a gradation, that there is different situations where one processor might work better than the other. So boiling everything down to a single score where this processor is this and this is this isn't always the right way to look at things.
True.
But people don't often have the time, the interest, the ability to focus long enough to analyze that.
Right. I know that if you scroll down below the main score that it spits, the overall score that it spits out, it does break down individual tests, and there are different categories tested, like rendering and 3D modeling and stuff.
Who's gonna scroll down, Kyle?
I don't know. Anyone who's up against the infinite scroll ban that we talked about on your
People
half.
don't scroll in 2019.
So they did, to be fair, Userbenchmark did say that they suggest people scroll down to look at those individual tests, because you can't just chalk it up to an overall single score. CPUs are more dynamic than that. At the same time, I think user reviews, like actual professional reviews, if you can even call us professionals, is probably your best bet in terms of getting the full story, getting the whole picture as to which CPU might be the best for your specific needs. And even then, you have to choose carefully on that. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about that. So we can move on to the next story here, which is from Guru 3D about AData launching their PCIe Gen 4x4 XPG GAMX S50 M.2 SSD. So it's using the latest.
I still think GAMX is just a funny word. GAMX.
GAMX. It sounds like gam.
Yeah.
Like my grandma.
All right. So I saw this posted earlier today, and I had this single question, and I never got it answered. But it was a single question that determined whether I thought this was interesting or not.
What?
Maybe you can answer it for me.
What's interesting or not?
Well, all of the PCI Express Gen 4 SSDs that are currently available on the market, there's one from Oris and there's a few more out there too, are based on the same controller.
Yes.
Made by Phison.
Yeah.
Is this based on that same controller as well?
It doesn't say.
Well,
it's a bad article. Or I'm a bad researcher and it does say and I just missed it.
If it is, then my expectation would be that this SSD would be pretty much the same as
all the other ones.
All the other PCI Express Gen 4 SSDs that have launched so far. Based on the read and write speeds, it looks very similar.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even if it had a different controller, the speeds would probably not be too different. But I feel like because they haven't mentioned it, it probably is the same Phison controller. I feel like that's something that they would hide if they knew it would only blend in with the competition.
Yeah.
It doesn't really stand out. They're more so emphasizing the aluminum heatsink that it comes with to reduce temperatures by up to 10 degrees.
Somebody, wait, hold on. Chad is pointing out that... Chat to the rescue. At that little picture. Maybe we should just pull the picture up. I don't know. Can we determine from this picture whether or not it's a Phison controller?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems debatable.
Possibly.
Because if you look at if you look at it one way, it's actually NOSHIP. It's a NOSHIP controller.
It's a ooh.
Right?
I'd be curious to see what the difference is in performance between that and the Phison.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep, it looks like Phison confirmed. Like Paul said, it's probably going to perform very similarly, and as you can see from the speeds, that is definitely the case.
They really didn't mention that in the article?
The NAND is a little bit different, perhaps, than other PCIe Gen 4 drives.
They didn't put it in... Come on, Guru 3D.
The NAND, I would say the NAND could have a different effect, a slightly different effect. It does have 3D flash memory with up to 2 terabyte capacity, SLC caching, a DRAM cache buffer, and a bunch of other features there. Random read and writes of up to 750,000 IOPS, and a 5-year warranty. I don't know what the other warranties are on the PCIe Gen 4 drives right now, but
that is an area that some of these new SSDs are not lining up with some of the existing SSDs, even that are PCI Express Gen 3, is IOPS performance. 750K is very good, but there are solutions existing that can go beyond that.
That are PCIe Gen 3.
So yeah, so you're seeing max read and write performance, which is often used to determine SSD performance, and that's not like a not legitimate number to look at or anything like that. But again, not the full story.
Yeah.
Keeping with the theme of today's episode, that you can't just look at that single number. There's nuance. There's subtlety.
I didn't realize this episode would have such a strong motif.
The world is not a black and white checkerboard. It is a gradient of
the world is like this half mouse pad from Corsair that I cut in half a long time ago.
Yes.
Because I was using it on a plane and the full mouse pad was too big. But that doesn't matter. This is life. This mouse pad is love. And you should all buy mouse pads from our stores. Turned into a hard sell.
I was like, wait, he's pivoting to the hard sell, right? Pivoting to the hard sell.
You got to pull on the heartstrings first, and then just go for the jugular.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
That's marketing.
Marketing hashtag. All right, let's move on to our next article from Tweaktown. I always feel like we're about to talk about like the next meth head that you should watch out for in your area when I go to Tweaktown, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Corsair IQ.
Anthony, oh no, this was by Shannon Robb.
This is all Shannon. Good old Shannon. The IQ 220T RGB mid-tower chassis from Corsair. This is just a review. I actually haven't really caught much wind of this case until now, so I kind of wanted to just go over the brief highlights, and you and I can sort of talk about what we think about it. So it's an ATX mid-tower. That's what it looks like. It has pretty good ventilation at the front. I mean, it looks kind of like they're going for like a Meshify type case, pretty open. Although the fan at the bottom, it's got 3 RGB fans included at the front. The fan at the bottom looks a little stifled. It doesn't look quite as open for airflow. It's got that Corsair logo there.
It does seem like potentially there's more of a focus on aesthetics here than
actual airflow. Yeah.
With some of this, because like there's not much sense in just having weird little gaps where there's not airflow.
Yeah, it definitely probably isn't as effective as a full mesh panel.
Okay.
And then we also have a very cramped interior. I guess that this would be good if you're looking for like a smaller footprint, a tinier case.
Looks pretty short front to back.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you probably could fit a full-size GPU in there, but not much more than that. Actually, it's a good thing you mentioned that, Paul, because they said that there's one picture that shows that the drive cage, even when it's in the most far back position towards the back of the case, is still very close to the front fans. However, Corsair is advertising that you can fit a 360 millimeter radiator at the front of the case, but Shannon found that in order to do that, you would have to completely remove the hard drive cage if you wanted to put a 360 right at the front. So, because there's not enough clearance. Also, this was a review sample. They were a little concerned about the quality of the case and how it shipped, but apparently it was just a rushed sample that they wanted to get to them for the review. And they assured that retail samples will actually be a lot more high quality and have a better QA process. It does have a power supply shroud. Again, it just seems to be talking, like Shannon seems to mention, that this case has a lot of sacrifices. For example, like the hard drive cage thing. Also, if you have a 240 millimeter radiator at the top of the case, you can only use low profile memory, like the LPX series from Corsair. Otherwise, there's just not enough clearance for, like, you couldn't even fit Corsair's RGB DDR4 in here. If you wanted an AIO at the front or at the top, you would have to put it at the front. So it looks pretty cramped in here.
So you're just saying
because the fans would interfere with the sticks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's not enough clearance. Right. So you've got some low profile HyperX, whatever those sticks are.
Yeah.
HyperX sticks in there. And it does look very tight. The Fury X, yes. And then you can see that motherboard almost fills up the entire depth of the case. Like it's very tight. And I was kind of surprised that when I saw the pictures, at least, I mean, don't judge a book by its cover and all that, but when I just kind of saw the case and looked at the quality, at least from the pictures, I did not expect it to be $110. I was thinking this might be a $70 or $80 case. It does have a fan hub at the back.
Fan hub is handy. Is a nice add-on. That's that's a $10. Like if you're gonna buy something like this, it's just a hub. There's no intelligent control or anything. There might be a direct connection to the power supply.
Yeah, you can buy a fan splitter for $1. You can buy maybe $4.
Like a PWM controllable fan splitter might be in the $5 to $15 range, depending on where you're buying from. But it's a nice thing to have in a case. I appreciate when it's there, but. Yeah,
I think that I would forego that to make other improvements in the case.
Just to make it a budget sensible
case.
Yeah,
exactly, or just drop the price.
$70 or $80.
Right. So I don't know. I feel like at $110 also, there's so many competitive cases in that price range. So it really needs to stand out.
Yeah.
If it was like $70, $80, it might be a little bit more competitive.
And I would say even with this, whatever they've done with the front panel here, like, I don't know,
I don't know how conducive those cutouts are.
It's not visually striking to me.
No, yeah, it doesn't look. I mean, it's not my personal taste.
Yeah. Anyway.
It looks like they tried to do a Meshify C. Because it's around the same price as a Meshify C, but I think I like the Meshify C a lot more. I'm sure Gamers Nexus will test it. Leak. Let's talk about some leaks about Intel's Xe graphics cards. These are their discrete GPUs that were recently leaked. Some code names were leaked through the graphics driver. This is an unintentional leak by Intel that was picked up by an eagle-eyed Anantech forum member. And these discrete GPUs are not set to launch till, I think, later next year, I believe. But there's a lot of hype behind them because we're looking for more competition in this space, of course, with just AMD and NVIDIA going head-to-head at the moment, and as they have been for a long time. So there's four model names that belong to the Xe graphics cards that have been leaked. There they are right there, as you can see. So I think IDG, or DG anyways, they've determined stands for discrete GPU.
Intel Discrete Graphics.
Intel Discrete
Intel
Graphics.
Discrete GPU.
So that kind of makes sense. And then the number at the end is probably execution units, which tells us a little bit. And there's also HP and LP. So the first one is an LP, and the following cards are HP. So that's low power and high power is what they're speculating.
Okay.
So you might consider that the HP cards are going to be a bit faster, a bit more powerful than their LP counterparts.
Or LP might be discrete graphics aimed specifically for mobile implementation.
Possibly.
Versus high power being for desktop.
Unless DG does mean discrete.
Well, discrete graphics you can still have on a
I guess you
laptop.
could. I guess you could.
I was going to say, because we were talking about some Ice Lake stuff on my half of the show at the beginning, those were specifically Gen 11 when it comes to Intel's generational naming of their graphics. So it would potentially seem, and again, this is speculation because we're talking about leaked information from TechRadar as compared to some stuff we know from the Anantech article.
Right.
Would be that the Gen 11 stuff probably doesn't have whatever new sauce they've been developing for their Xe cards and the discrete GPUs. But again, that's just a guess.
Yeah. Some other guesses here is that the Xe GPUs will most likely target the mid-range GPU market. However, there are some rumors that are speculating higher clock speeds that could likely allow these cards to compete with some of the NVIDIA RTX offerings. Perhaps at the low end, like an RTX 2060, or 2060 Super, which would be exciting, definitely. There's also hardware ray tracing that is supposedly going to be supported, which is going to, of course, sort of match up with the RTX lineup and will actually be a step up over the AMD's RX 5700 series GPUs, which do not support hardware ray tracing at the moment. We also have a brief leak for Rocket Lake, as I alluded to in Paul's half. Very slight leak here. Rocket League is the official esports game of the Rocket Lake 11th gen CPU. So I guess this would be 11th gen because I think it's going to follow Ice Lake. And if rumors are said to be true, this will also be on 10 nanometer, which is going to be a revised, built on a revised 14 nanometer plus node. It could very well beat out the 3900X from AMD, which would be exciting. That would definitely give Intel a more competitive edge because, especially in like the multi-threaded game, because they're definitely falling behind there, even with their flagship 9900K at the moment. This shouldn't be around till next year, however, so expect a 2020 launch. No idea exactly what time of the year, but for as long as Intel's been delaying 10 nanometer, I wouldn't get your hopes up or hold your breath for too long. So yeah, Rocket Lake.
I think that's still a huge question to be answered.
What's that?
Because it's all been rumor and speculation up to this point. What is Intel going to do in the desktop space at the end of 2019 and
stick it to AMD
and then 2020? To answer AMD, to provide a follow-up to what they currently have available, to provide something for what they've been developing when it comes to the 10 nanometer stuff that they've been working on for years. There keeps being so many rumors that they're going to have some new version of 14 nanometer yet again, which I can't help but think would be disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much more they can squeeze out.
No, it's
on
been tapped out for a long time.
So, yeah, if we're expecting 10th gen 10 nanometer CPUs on the mobile side at the end of this year, is there going to be anything on the desktop that's 10 nanometer? Do they have, are they going to do 14 nanometer launch at the end of this year too? And what's that going to look like? I don't know. I'm very curious, and I don't know the answer. So
I mean, it also it makes me wonder too. Like, are they do they really just need to add more cores? Like, if it is 14 nanometer plus, if they give us 12 core and 16 core options, then I mean, are they going to be just as competitive as Ryzen CPUs? You know, and if they can lower the prices, like,
I'd have to doubt it, because you're dealing, like, at that point you're just dealing with the physical size of the socket and the chip. Like, you're still working with the same process node, so you can't shrink everything down to be a smaller die size overall. AMD is working with 7 nanometer node, and they have chiplet design, so they specifically made these just really tiny chiplets that they can sort of implement how they want to. It would be hard to see Intel switching over to something like that on 14 nanometer. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they have something 14 nanometer that they're going to come out with at the end of this year, just because they have nothing else to launch on the desktop otherwise. Maybe it might even be okay. Who knows? We've seen NVIDIA do some pretty crazy magic with their GPUs. If you go back to, like, when they went from 400 series to 500 series, I forget what process node that was on. I think it was 32 nanometer or something at the time. But through pure design changes in the microarchitecture, without changing the process, they were able to vastly improve the efficiency of their GPUs. So,
well, yeah, sure.
You know, maybe they've got something like that in the works.
But what if,
it's really hard to say.
Do you think, like, wouldn't it be crazy though if they're just so delayed on 10 nanometer that later this year, or maybe even early next year, they launch another CPU family on 14 nanometer plus whatever, but because they want to compete with the high core count, and let's say they want to roll out 16 core CPUs and they just can't fit it all, like, what if they just made the CPUs bigger? Like, to almost to the point they're like X299, like,
then they would need
CPUs.
to launch
a new socket,
set of motherboards and a new socket, and
right.
Do
you think they're that desperate? Right, I mean, they have the money. They have the money to do it.
Since you bring that up,
it's an interesting thought.
It gave me an idea.
Ideas are good, usually.
And actually, all right. So let's try to look best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try to look the best case of the worst case scenario. Let's assume they can't do anything on the desktop on 10 nanometer in 2019, but they do have something they want to launch.
Yeah.
If they were to launch a new mainstream socket, to something modified, with 14 nanometer CPUs at the end of this year, but that socket was also designed to support 10 nanometer CPUs that they're launching in 2020, I could see that being a viable play for them.
Yeah.
Because you could potentially get the IPC performance that you currently have on something like a 9900K, and that is a selling point for some people.
Yeah.
You could mix up the core counts and everything. You could maybe have a little bit more room to work with. I could see something like that working for Intel, but they would really have to make that promise. They need to come out like AMD did back when AM4 first launched and be like, we're supporting this through 2020.
It's an all-in.
They need to give us
they have to be all in.
At least a 2, if not a 3-year promise on that.
Right.
And that would give people, I think, a much more... People would feel better about investing in that platform if they knew that next year they've got some 10 nanometer products coming.
Yep, exactly.
But again, that's looking at kind of the potential best case scenario. And that would also have to assume that Intel is... is going down that path, which I have no idea if they are or not. But
right,
who knows?
Lots to think about. Very exciting, though. We can move on to our next segment, which is Pimp My PC, where you guys have submitted pictures and specs of your existing rigs, and Paul and I will tell you how terrible they are and how you can make them better.
Yes,
we love reprimanding you for your awful system etiquette. Aesthetics.
Well put, Kyle.
Stony Mahoney, 69. No less. With an AMD Ryzen 3600 overclocked to 4 GHz, Gigabyte B450M S2H, Zotac GTX 1080, 16 gigs of Corsair Vengeance LPX, and some storage, and an Antec GX 300 case.
Ryzen 3000 system.
Okay, that's good.
It's good to see one of these. Is this the first Ryzen 3000 build?
It might be.
On My PC?
It might.
I think
Yeah.
Stony Mahoney gets props just for that.
Possibly.
I'm
can't remember
curious,
last week.
Mr. Mahoney, if you've had any issues with the B450 updating to support the Ryzen 3000 series, I just recently did a build video, and I still haven't done the follow-up to it. I'm going to be working on that this week. Apparently, there's a decent amount of people having issues updating 400 series boards to work with 3000 series processors.
Yeah, I've been having issues with my 3400G lately.
Yeah, so Kyle's been having issues
weird.
with his APU. Something I'm going to take a closer look at because I was not aware that there were some snafu situations going on. But all that doesn't matter because all we care about is the aesthetics of this build. I really like how you've matched the mustard in the ketchup and mustard cables of your power supply
The GPU.
with the back of your graphics card. It's very thoughtful, but
Still
your
doesn't
power
look great.
supply cables still look horrible.
Yeah. Nice try.
I've never said this before. Kingston has these Kingston SSDs. I forget the version or whatever, but it's got their Kingston. It's like the Easter Island statue logo. Remember? You know, the Kingston has, and it's red. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's racist.
That's all I wanted to come down to. What?
Nothing.
It's not racist. It's a logo.
You don't like red people.
It's a black and red logo.
Oh, so it's black. Black. You don't like black and red people.
Yes. Okay.
No, I think it does stand out, even if it's just a tad. Red is so obvious. It stands out a lot. So if you could remove that with a heat gun or something like that, you could probably peel right off. Be a bit more discreet. And I think that that Spire cooler is probably at its rope's end. If you're really overclocking that CPU to 4 gigahertz, I would suggest getting a higher end one.
If it's what came with the 3600, then it's a stealth.
Stealth, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But even then, I feel like overclocking to 4 gigahertz like all the time, if it's just constant, that might be a little extreme for it. I mean, if your temps are fine, that's great. But I would check your temps and just maybe invest in a better cooler. If you are trying to put, because it seems like you're interested in pushing your CPU quite far, so that might be the first thing to upgrade.
I think overall build quality and cable management are actually very, very nice here. Your cables are ugly, but they are well managed, so you get props for that. Really, it's just like dealing with your color situation. Color on the cables, color on the Zotac card isn't horrible. That stands out. It's up to your personal preference whether or not you like that yellow. But then you got some of the stickers on the SSD and the power supply, and then you've got a couple slightly older types of hardware like an optical drive and your hard drive, which stand out a little bit and aren't quite as aesthetically pleasing. So
yeah,
there's little things you could do with each of those that would make it all prettier. But
all your expansion slots.
I fall back on like I said, your cable management here, which honestly is quite good. Quite good.
Yeah.
All right.
You could benefit from a new case for sure, as well.
Moving on.
It's Night Denizen.
Denizen, the denizen of the night.
Fractal design, Define R6, Asus Maximus 8 Hero Alpha, 6700K, Corsair H115i, and it looks like we have an RTX 2080 Founders Edition with a couple fans there. Oh wow! Okay,
This is like the waifu build.
Yeah, it's like a half-naked girl on your computer, but her hair looks well cable managed, so that's
She's
good.
not half naked. She has a.
Okay, maybe it's just like the giant boobs that make it look like there's a ton of cleavage and somewhat half naked. Because the more cleavage you have, the more naked you are, technically. Anyway.
Racist.
No, it's racist. That's boob racist. Okay, so it looks like a really nicely put together system. Your specs are there. It's very fast, very powerful. I do see some mismatched fans at the top. Looks like you've got an NZXT Air fan, but then also like that white fractal fan, which doesn't match. I feel like you should go with one or the other, and since the Air RGB fans are more expensive, then I would go with those, and you already have 2 of them. So swap that white fan out with another Air RGB fan, or you could just remove it entirely, but I would just replace it so that you don't lose any airflow. And also cable management is pretty good, actually. 24-pin area and PCIe area for your GPU looks good. I think it could be tidied up a little bit on your water block because water blocks are tricky nowadays. You've usually got, you know, some cable for your pump maybe, and then maybe another one for your actual RGB, some stupid RGB crap, and then maybe another one to like power it, like with a SATA coming off of that. So sometimes you have like 3 or 4 cables coming off of your water block. They're getting increasingly difficult to cable manage, but I think there's still ways around it. You can zip tie those together so it looks like one continuous cable, like one single bunch of cables, as opposed to an octopus of shit coming off of your water block. I think that could help you, and definitely you have to think more about that when you're dealing with a case that has a white interior, because those black cables will show up a lot more.
I'm trying to figure out the context in which this sticker image was taken.
You're still looking at the naked chick?
No, well, like her hair is flying up in the sky. She looks like she's happy, but then she's kind of tied up here.
She does have
how would that photo be taken, realistically speaking?
Like, yeah, you have to tie the model up and then have her jump on a trampoline, and then get her at the perfect spot.
Yeah,
and then
but make sure she's still happy.
Yes.
I guess.
And ensure that her boobs are well secured, because
chat was mentioning there seems to be plenty of storage for hentai in this system.
For once, chat's not wrong.
I will say I appreciate the rear shot here as well of the cable management. Other than that, I agree with what Kyle has said.
Damn right you do.
Any closing thoughts, Kyle?
Nice front panel. I bet all the
great front panel.
All the boobs on that front panel will definitely improve airflow.
Lots of cleavage.
Hell yeah. All right, I would not touch that rig with a 10-foot pole. Let's move on to Clemente
de Hoyos Jr.
Clemente with a Ryzen 7 2700X, MSI GeForce GTX 1080 Gaming X, and looks like we have a MSI B350 Tomahawk, 16 gigs of Trident Z RGB RAM, and an NZXT S340. M.2 and RAM are outdated in this pic. Thanks for letting us know. First thing that stands out is the blue and white sticker on your SSD. Remove that. Remove it.
Fair enough.
The other thing that stands out is cable management looks a little hairy just above your cooler. Maybe I'm being nitpicky, but that could be tucked away a little bit. Also, the cables coming off your graphics card are
above the CPU cooler?
Above the CPU cooler, yeah. And then also off of your graphics card look fairly loose. You could make those a bit more taut.
Yeah,
I feel. But really nice color coordination here with the red Corsair fans and the case and the GPU. Those all match perfectly. I would love to see another one of those red Corsair fans, those AF fans, at the back and the top of your case, just for that extra bit of coordination.
True.
Plus, they're probably going to move a bit more air than those NZXT stock case fans. And plus you get to see the ring a lot better because they'll actually be facing the interior of the case. Apart from that, man, it looks pretty good. I mean, you could, of course, go with custom sleeve cables if you want to save up for that. Look a bit more showy. And that's pretty much all I got. Nice rig, though.
I agree with I said quile.
Quile?
Because I was about to say quibble.
Quinile?
I agree with Kyle. I have one minor quibble. Which is that you could flip this cooler 180 degrees and maybe the AMD logo would be on the top left corner and maybe more upright. Minor, very minor, but you know, if you're going to go in there and do any other changes, maybe do that at the same time. And nice little build there.
Good job.
Good
Next we have
components.
Mr. Bruce, Patriot Viper 4 series with a Ryzen 5 2600. MSI AirBoost RX Vega 64. Nice to see a Vega in here. We also have a Deepcool Kappa 10 240EX RGB, Oris B450 Pro Wi-Fi motherboard, and a Thermaltake V200 RGB case. He's having an issue with his RGB lighting not syncing up, apparently. Okay. Well, the system, from what I'm looking at here, just with the lights off and stuff, looks pretty clean, actually.
Yeah.
You routed everything where it should be. It does look like you've got an RGB cable that's kind of just hanging out to the left of your CPU. To the left of the CPU cooler, it's just kind of hanging out. I feel like maybe there's... And it seems like you're connecting it, the actual header on your motherboard has put you in an uncomfortable position there. A little awkward.
Is that coming from the cooler?
It's probably the cooler.
Or is the RGB header on the motherboard actually right there?
Yeah, there's an RGB header on the motherboard that's just southwest of the CPU cooler.
What a stupid place for that.
Yeah, no, it's not good. And it looks like that motherboard doesn't even have like a groove between its VRM heat sinks for you to route that under, or in between. So you're forced to kind of go over. You know, if you could,
you can get extensions for those little 3 and 4 pin RGB headers. So maybe an extension cable would give you flexibility to route that cable elsewhere,
right,
and still get the functionality out of it. I was going to say, you've got a Corsair 750 watt power supply. You should have 2 independent PCI Express graphics power connectors, rather than using the daisy chain. Even if you're using 2 connectors that have 2 daisy chains going off of them, I think bringing 2 cables up to plug in your power here would keep you from having that extra daisy chain loop, which might make things look a little bit cleaner there.
Yeah. I think that's possible.
Okay.
Everything else looks really good though. Again, custom sleeve cables or sleeve cables is always an option. But overall, very nice build. I hope you get your RGB situation worked out.
I agree.
Next up we have Nico.
Nico
Belli.
Nico Belli.
Hey cousin.
Cousin.
You want to go bowling? Look at the lips on that one. Oh my God, it's fucking Roman. All right, so CM Stormtrooper, Asus Sabertooth Z77, and Intel Core i7 3770K, GTX 6060 Ti, and we have Windows 7 Ultimate. I built this computer December of 2012. All except cooler and SSD is still original. Please pimp my PC. We'd love to. Wow,
this
cooler
is
and
so
SSD.
nostalgic.
Yeah,
We've got the Stormtrooper. We've got the old Corsair HX 850 watt power supply. This is this is a solid power supply.
Oh yeah,
but it was
my 750.
It was like a generation or 2 before the all black cabling becoming kind of the thing you needed for a good PSU. So
right.
You of course have obviously the ketchup and mustard standing out. You've got an Actua exhaust fan at the back, which isn't doing you any favors aesthetically. It's a very good fan. Noctua fans, honestly, I feel like are better utilized with their static pressure performance. So, you know, swapping that out for a different fan that just might look aesthetically better probably isn't going to change your actual cooling performance all that much.
And Noctua has black fans now.
Yeah, or get a Chromax.
Chromax
or the industrial fan, that would be nice. A little cable extension. Could pop on there, would solve your ketchup and mustard problem for the most part.
Your water block's good.
Yeah, your cooler looks good.
It's making me tilt my head. I don't like it.
Got a bit of RGB lighting in there. If you are doing a pass on this system for aesthetics, then I would also say maybe consider pulling that top sticker off of your power supply. Side one we can live with. Top one is white, standing out a little bit more. Barely, yes. I mean, I guess if you're taking the top one off, might as well take both of them off. But
take it off, baby.
There you go. Beyond that, your graphics card is not that pretty. I don't know what to tell you beyond that. You just have like some unfinished.
It's the meanest thing you've ever said.
You have no backplate and the side of it. I don't know why that's standing out and not looking that great. What is that? Oh, it's a 660 Ti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What brand? MSI?
MSI.
Okay. Before back plates were really popular back then.
But I love the Stormtrooper case.
Yeah.
This is the Storm.
I bought the refresh one that came out a year or 2 ago.
Yeah.
The tempered glass. It's really nice. We used it for our server.
We had a white version of this case, and what I always loved about it was you had all these hard drive bays right here with active cooling fans that went right over them.
That was really
So we had our main editing system back when we were at Newegg.
Yeah.
That I built for our editor Anna. She's probably not watching this, but hi, if you happen to be.
Last person
keeping
I'd expect to tune into our show.
Anyway, she was awesome. We liked her a lot.
Yes.
But yeah, you could stack a bunch of hard drives in there and have active cooling over them, so they'd stay chilly even if you were hitting them pretty hard with some reads and writes.
And one of the best handles that a case ever had.
Yes, very solid
amazing
handle at the top. So even though it's a huge case and difficult to lug around, made easier with the handle there. Okay, last
one.
my PC.
Mr. Scott.
Scott Winters.
9700K at 5.2 gigahertz at 1.38.
Nice
flex. Radeon RX 5700 XT 50th edition. Other nice flex. Gigabyte Z390M gaming, 16 gigs of G.Skill, 3200 cast latency, 14 RAM, and a Dell pre-built case from 2011. What is that? What?
Whoa.
I was like, this system sounds awesome. And then the very last thing, a Dell pre-built case. And look at that radiator. It's not even mounted to anything, it looks like. I mean, it couldn't be. What is, how are temperatures? How are things? What the hell?
Dude,
what gauge are those tubes?
He's got a 5.2 gigahertz going on that processor.
I mean, Silicon Lottery for sure.
Not the lowest voltage, but pretty decent voltage.
For 5.2, that's amazing. That's really good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Why are the tubes so thick? Like chode tubes.
I don't mind the thick tubes.
I don't mind them. They just look really fat.
The thing that
beefy.
bothers me is this radiator.
The radiator has, well, it's not getting any intake from where? Look at the front of the case, the outside. There's zero ventilation here. Because this pre-built was probably filled with like, you know, no discrete GPU with a low TDP chip that just required very little airflow. But now you have a 9700K running at 5.2 at almost 1.4 volts. You need airflow. What are your temperatures? Like your overclock setting looks impressive until we see the temps. I don't know how this is functioning.
This is a micro ATX system.
Yeah,
I thought it was mini.
A lot of pre-builts I feel like
I thought
are
it
micro.
was mini, but it's micro.
I mean, it's a beautiful, like all the interior components are amazing, and the fact that you have a 5700 in here, 5700 XT, shows us that you've been building upon this recently, but you still have this pre-built case. Maybe you just like the fact that it's such a sleeper, and I get that, but there are other sleeper cases that will give you better airflow at the same time.
So yeah, I'd be curious what temperatures are. You know, it's possible that with whatever's going on with airflow elsewhere, in this case, he's doing okay. Who knows? Beyond that, this weird angled situation with the radiator is what bothers me the most. I kind of like that you just have this little angle bracket that the pump is mounted to. That's fun.
Super fun.
Your
I'm having a
tubing
blast.
doesn't look that pretty just because it's kind of discolored. It looks like maybe it's been in use for a little while.
It looks like someone peed in your loop.
So that doesn't look all that great.
Looks like a catheter.
And then you've got an EVGA power supply, which is adequate, but I feel like you have higher end parts in here, so I don't know. Maybe consider swapping in an SFX power supply. That's my suggestion. SFX power supply with a bracket would give you a lot more room to work with, maybe fully modular, so you could get rid of some of the excess cables you have going on back here, and that might give you enough room to sort of reconfigure some stuff. And then, I don't know, you could mod the front of the case with mesh or something like that.
Mod it by removing it entirely.
For different intake. I like this case, I like this build from a conceptual standpoint, and I actually don't mind this case at all. So yeah, I don't know.
The other thing is that, like, the 5700 XT, you're using the stock cooler on it, which has been... I'm sure everything's fine. I hear a beeping noise. That might be one of our smoke alarms, but Wifey Sauce has it under control.
Everything's fine.
She's never steered me wrong before.
Yep.
Oh God, we're all gonna die. So I think the 5700 XT cooler has been known to be hot. It runs hot. A lot of people have even said to hold out for the custom ad board partner variants where you're gonna get lower temperatures, better clock speeds. So I feel like this like you need more ventilation. There's not enough ventilation here for all the components that you're cramming in here.
Yep.
So, new case. Get a new case, change the tubing. Honestly, you could keep everything else, and I think it would be a killer build.
I agree.
My 2 cents.
All right.
Thanks, Scott. That's going to do it for my half. Let's after party.
After party.
After party time.
Coming at you soon. If you're on Twitch, stay where you're at. If you're on YouTube, it is linked in the video's description.
That is so true.
Go there.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Bye, guys.